Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's panel discussion on scaling DeFi. We've got some wonderful panelists here today, and we're going to have a great conversation, so thanks for joining us. Maybe just to kick it off, going down the line here, could we do a quick intro about yourself and the project, and just tell us about what it does in DeFi? Thanks, guys.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel. I go by GPMS. I work as BD in Beefy. So a quick intro on Beefy, I will say, is basically it's a yield optimizer, yield aggregator. Like, we make DeFi easy for the average user, you could say. And we also have CLM products, which is a concentration liquidity manager. And we basically make DeFi accessible for the not so savvy DeFi user.
Hi, my name is Ada. I lead DeFi at Stellar Development Foundation. So the foundation is oriented to fostering the use of the Stellar network. It's a layer 1 blockchain, been around since 2014. So we've been doing this for a minute. In terms of DeFi, so the DeFi growth on Stellar has just been in the last year. We launched smart contracts, our platform called Sorbonne. And so there's been a lot of exciting growth. Growing TVL and drawing protocols to our platform is kind of where I'm focused right now. But it's an exciting time.
Hi, I'm Philip, head of DevRel at Flare. So Flare is a layer 1 EVM-compatible blockchain with one non-trivial addition. You can have data directly on-chain. So we focus on bringing data on-chain, not just pricing data for DeFi, but also data that can be used in other ways. So you can have data about an external information happening, and then DeFi can pick up on this. So you can do a prediction market on top of this. You can do some lending, borrowing on top of this. And importantly, it's pretty much an infrastructure below the blockchain. So the blockchain still functions normally. It's just that you have this access to something that was unavailable by now, and we focus on security purely. So if the data is on, it's secure. Otherwise, you can't even get it.
GM, I'm Mark, director of the Peace Data Association, contributing to the Peace Network. So if you had heard about the Peace Network before, might have seen, Oracle, a bit of rebranding, bit of repositioning. So now we refer ourselves to the universal price layer. And what does it mean? Means that we want this Oracle protocol to pretty much be able to price every asset on Earth. I think today we have 1.5 thousand price feeds live available on over 100 chains. So very much we've seen like DeFi, like with protocols and blockchains having the execution and the settlement layer. Pith now is very much into this pricing layer.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And hello, all. I'm Bobby. I'm a venture capitalist over at CoinFund, which is one of the oldest venture firms in the space. So super excited. We've got such a breadth of panelists today across different layers of the stack. We have layer 1s, oracles, DeFi apps, yield optimizers. So we're going to get some really interesting insight here. And maybe just to kick it off, I'd love to just have everyone weigh in on scaling in DeFi has meant different things over the years. I think we've gone through different phases and different metas. So curious, like when we say scaling in DeFi, I think each of you might have a different concept of what that means to you, and would love to just have you guys go through that and shine some light on what scaling means to you guys.
I mean, from the infra perspective, so Pith provide price feeds that you can trustlessly use once the Pith contract's available on your chain. So how we think about scaling, like you now have hundreds of chains and every week you have 10 more chains. How can, like Pith wants to serve all these actors. So we were half lucky and half think bright in how we designed the protocol so that we only need to deploy a smart contract to fully support a chain. Pith works as a pool oracle, meaning that applications can permissionlessly request and trigger price updates on chain. So overall, for us, or for Pith to be available on a chain, just need one smart contract deployment. We don't need to have a whole bunch of RPCs, etc. And how we see it in practice is most of the recent chains that launch, the Pith oracle can actually be available like within the first few blocks of a mainnet chain. So, I mean, you have Movement going live, Bera chain, all these new blockchains, Pith oracle end up being available day one. And that's like many oracle, legacy oracle or older have a bit more trouble with the speed. Pith were a bit lucky with how we designed the protocol that now is very easily like scalable from our perspective?
I'll talk about scaling DeFi because it's what I keeps me up at night. Definitely, I think that scaling in DeFi for us inside of the Stellar ecosystem, we focus a lot on this idea of healthy TVL. So there have been, some really exciting spikes and trends in DeFi for sure over the last few years. But what we're focused on in Stellar is this concept of enabling real world utility with DeFi. So like the concept of PayFi, funding payment streams, like applying DeFi principles to more conventional needs in the market, whether that be lending in emerging markets, B2B payment flows, trade finance, all these things that are like maybe kind of boring compared to meme coins, but actually serve a real purpose, and it's very sticky, an area of growth for us.
Uh, what I have to say is that basically, as we at Beefy look at it, is every product and everything that comes out DeFi every day is like more complicated now. Our main job at Beefy, as I said before, is basically make it easier for the users. At the beginning, like we have normal dexes like PancakeSwap. We just had 50-50 liquidity. We had like lending protocols. Like every time it gets more complicated, so we have to basically adapt to offer the users like new opportunities and the easiness of getting with these products. Also, the Bit3 liquidity, which for me personally, it was very complicated at the beginning. That's why we did the CLM, so users just deposit and we manage the ranges automatically. They don't have to do anything else. And also, we develop a tool called the Zapper, which users can bring liquidity into any pool, which with any token basically that they have on the wallet. So basically, as DeFi gets more complicated, all of us here, have our job to do a better job trying to get it easy for the retail investor.
Yeah, maybe just one take just to finish on this. So yeah, we should be doing a better job for retail investors, somebody working on this. And we've seen that the DeFi is currently scaling by new chain launching every day. So we have a bunch of chains launching, and this liquidity that's just moving from one point farming system to another point farming system, it's not really how you scale. I think the biggest point of scaling will come when we can have a unified view on this liquidity, when you can have a unifying system, when you don't have to move liquidity. You can borrow against one type of asset on the other chain and have a safe way to know, okay, sure, I can borrow towards these purpose and I can use them directly here. So having these nice abstractions on top of this and having then each chain specialize at what they do best. So there are chains good for remittances, there are chains good for perps, there are chains good for, RWAs. But to really properly scale this to, get my mother to use it, she shouldn't be able to really distinguish between what a chain is and what a brokerage account is. Okay, I just want this to happen and the message just come across anywhere. So connecting all this and making sure that the liquidity is not migrating just because it looks nicer on the other side is an important question to tackle even now, even more than everything though.
Awesome. So some common themes there. I think on the one hand, we have a few folks that are hyper focused on optimizing the infrastructure to scale. I mean, Pith launching first day oracles on all these new networks so that we can horizontally scale across a bunch of chains makes a lot of sense. But the other theme is like, seems like the other way to scale DeFi is just make it easier to use. So I'm curious, like, when we think about new users that could scale DeFi up to TradFi kind of levels, well, first, are any of you guys seeing like evidence of institutional adoption coming into the space to scale up TVL and such? And if so, have you had to like change the way that you deal with them as opposed to like crypto natives?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because like the question is like, what about institutional adoption, and is that going to drive scale in DeFi, right? But I feel like our whole industry kind of holds out this institutional adoption, like, Christmas Day, kind of like, oh, it's going to be institutional adoption, and then the sun will come through the clouds. Like, I don't think of that as the holy grail of what's happening in our industry. I think more about it in chunks. Like, To me, adoption looks like this app called Mero in Mexico. It's this fintech app, right? The users don't have any concept that they're using DeFi, but they have an interest-bearing USD account that's based on a protocol called Blend. And so they don't know they're using DeFi, right? Like they are, but it's that kind of adoption and those kinds of use cases that just make it dead easy for the user and bring a clear benefit to the user that I think are going to bring scale.
I much agree with you, Ada. It's all about more adoption, more like user adoption. We should focus. Institutional adoption, it's more like please pump our bags. I feel, but
Totally, yeah.
it like you should be like using crypto or crypto powered app or blockchain powered app without knowing. And like for example, I don't often order stuff from Amazon, but like I have no clue how it works. Like it's okay, AWS, internet. Okay, after I need to put my card, I get a pop-up. Like it's very similar to like a wallet interaction. And you like users, we all don't care how the whole Amazon banking Swift actually works. So I think that's what we should all focus more is like get people to use DeFi or crypto blockchain without knowing it.
Yeah, chain abstraction. So you have to abstract over all this and just make it simple to interact. That's about it. And I mean, my hot take, we should not forget security behind this. We can't have yet another moment that will happen and say, oh, this is very nice to use, you got great yield, this is easy to use, there's mobile apps that support all this, and then have another big crash that says, oh, sorry, somebody forgot to flip the switch. So yeah, all this, all good, but we need to make sure that security is is really, really paramount here. Because just one big mistake when you have a proper adoption by retail users happening by saying, oh, some smart contract bug or a multi-sig hack somewhere is gonna pretty much set us back for a few years.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, the institutional adoption in RWAs is real, and that's like very active on Stellar. We have, excellent rankings on RWA.xyz for these RWA assets. And I think like what's coming next in terms of institutional behavior is once all these assets are issued, it's kind of like the stablecoin wars of 2025 right now. There's so many now there's yield bearing, now there's different, available in different jurisdictions. And I think what's going to happen now is now there has to be some way to employ these assets, right? So everything's on chain now. Now it comes to DeFi, and I think that's when you're going to see more participation from the institutions.
I think we are already seeing a lot of participation about traditional finance. Mainly, in my opinion, is because the regulatory environment is changing. Like it's currently changing in favor of DeFi, in favor of crypto as a whole, and like is promoting the emergence of new products. That's something that I truly believe that we saw with the ETFs. Like a lot of people, how Mark's mentioned earlier, some people say like traditional institutions are gonna pump my bags, but for example, that was the main focus behind the ETFs, like the crypto people had at the moment. But if you look at from another point of view, like having a traditional finance doing an ETF on Bitcoin, which is something that we are personally like using since I don't know how many years, like that's clearly like a clue that they are already like trying to get the traditional finance users into basically our world, and our mission is to take care of them.
Thanks. I think all of you guys have really interesting insights into the institutional side of the world. Maybe taking a step back for a second and focus a little bit more on the crypto native. I think every 3 months, 6 months or something, there seems like there's a new meta in DeFi that like achieves some crazy amount of scale. I think if I was going to name some examples, like right now, like point systems are huge, like ways to attract TVL. We have like vault strategies for new chains, DeFi. 2 years ago we had Anchor and Luna. So like some of these metas continue to exist and scale up and become interesting to traditional investors, and some of them blow up and go away. So gonna ask you guys any hot takes from you guys as to what current metas might stick around and which ones are not gonna make it.
My my hot take, I think like the kind of new meta is doing your own chain or your L2 or your app chain. which my hot take, and it's my personal opinion, we don't need so much chains, or we don't need app chain. We just need like to find a way to make with what we have, like on that specific aspect, making it better and try to work into something that it's a whole. As Philip mentioned earlier, like I feel the liquidity is so fragmented because everyone wants to do like their own chain. Everyone wants to do like they have an app and now they want to do an app chain, and it's getting very complicated for normal users to just interact with something, because you have to go to another place just to do one thing and then go to another place to do another thing. And I don't think that's scalable in the long run.
An especially hot take for Multichain Day. So you heard it here first.
I expand on this, but rather on the asset side. We have enough stablecoins. We have enough LSTs, LRTs, etc. Stop launching your own stablecoin. Stop launching. Like as the app chain, there is a business case. Yes, I can make money. Protocol can make money, but you end up with, say, BTC derivatives that maybe have 100 million or a billion in like TVL market cap that are deployed on multiple chain, and you have that asset that does like 10K trading volume, and that's like we're going to zero if this is the case. Like you cannot sell 10% of a Bitcoin without sending these assets to zero on chain. So less assets, more consolidation, less chains. I agree with you.
Well, I think that DeFi AI is gonna help here. So, like I said, abstraction. So having an agent or something do just a bit of this work for me, with me having to forget this, and the wallet support behind this, I think that's gonna be crucial. Yeah, sure, we don't need more chains, but even the ones we already have are quite fragmented. So making this easier to work and making this much more interoperable is gonna make this work. You still need to specialize. You can't have everything on Ethereum. But being able to interact with somebody not necessarily smarter than you, but somebody or some entity that knows how to properly route you through multiple bridges, and knowing that your funds cannot get locked in the meantime, is going to be crucial for adoption. That I think will stick, because it will have to stick if we want to move forward.
Okay, so I'll go last. My hot take is like a little bit mean. So, yep, proof of stake doesn't scale. Like at the end of the day, like how many presentations have I seen that were titled like scaling Ethereum? Like basically there's a whole ecosystem. There's like hundreds, literally hundreds, maybe thousands of projects that have cropped up to build things on top of Ethereum to make it work better. And I think it's time for alternatives.
Is this including like Solana and Sui? Like,
I think that you have to take a hard look at like all the machinations that you're going through to make something work.
that's fair. What is Stellar's approach to consensus?
Yes, Stellar has a proof of agreement consensus mechanism. It's very cheap. It's very fast to get to finality in a few seconds. And definitely there's like, for a long time, there were like the TPS wars of, 2023, where everyone was like, that's, 10,000 this, 40,000 that. I think that to have a performant chain that does what you need it to do is where we are.
Awesome. Didn't know we were going to hop into consensus mechanisms, but I love it. Cool. I think another thing that's pretty unique about DeFi and the industry that we work in is just kind of scaling DeFi as a goal isn't something that like any one of you can kind of do on your own, and there's a lot of collaboration involved with it. And I think we've kind of hinted at it already that you guys like are all synergistic. But I'm just curious, like, do you guys have thoughts on how that either presents like a challenge or a superpower for DeFi? Just the fact that like everybody has to compose with each other, you guys have to work together. You each have like ecosystem teams that are focused on other people building on top of you. Like, is that a scaling unlock, or is that a scaling hindrance, I think is my question.
I think the big thing is like TradFi, when you talk traditional finance, they always say the global financial market. But actually, it's very siloed. Like you're in Africa, you're in South America, like good luck, try trading on NYSE, on CBOR. And I think DeFi, like I won't say it will replicate TradFi, but overall, we're going to reach toward the same end product, but just the world will have access to it. Much cheaper, much more people having access to this common financial system. So I think it's just where it goes and how you actually like scale and of unique composability. And I mean, I don't know on which chain it will happen, etc. But I think it will end up this way.
I think for scaling, it's a good thing that we have to work together because, for example, for us at Beefy, like we manage more than 1,000 products. We manage a lot of CLMs, and we use a lot of infrastructure that the normal user is not aware of. But I don't want to do it all like by myself. For example, we work with Bith. We have some price feeds for our token, and I don't want to build an oracle. Like I know Bith only does that, and they're gonna provide me with my price feed. Also, for example, Gelato, we use some of the dev tooling they have for managing the ranges in the CLM. Like I don't want to do that manually. Like Gelato's already done it and they do it very well. So I think if everyone is doing like their job like the way it should be, I think we're gonna like is able to scale.
I agree. I think it's great for the pace of innovation to have specialists and to have services that you can access for builders. Because if you had to build everything from scratch, nothing would ever get done. And yeah, why reinvent the wheel if there's a great service you can pay for? Plus, it's good. It's good for the economy of our industry, right? To have services that are like providing good service. There's competition. You can select a service, go out and buy that, and supply it to your users. I think it's healthy.
Yeah, I think that this scaling by having to cooperate with somebody is good because A, you can develop very good interfaces how to interact with people, and B, it kind of forces you to find a mode where this is not a zero-sum game. So we don't want to be competing against each other. So I don't want to pull people from other networks. It's not a PvP. We want to be able to expand this to other things, and working with your so-called competitor allows you to see where you're better, where you're worse, and complement each other. So I think this is a crucial thing for a crypto world to see, that it's not trying to gather stuff from other people. It's trying to offer a service that's going to bring more people in and allow more people to interact, not just gathering all the liquidity that already exists.
I promised I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a sec. You guys all told me that like one of the biggest problems that we had was like there wasn't one like kind of unified customer experience. And I was hoping one of you guys would push back, but it seems like the open innovation and like API economy approach of how DeFi kind of fits together is potentially part of like the problem of the user experience. Like you don't have a single, Apple providing this very like integrated experience, like front to back, like easy tutorial or whatever. It's kind of like a Wild West that you have to figure out. So I guess I'll sit here and take a stand and say, like, I think might actually be a hindrance at the end of the day, but I respect your takes. Does anybody want to hop on my side, or just tell me why I'm wrong?
I'll tell why I think you're wrong.
All right, let's do
it. Even though we use a lot of services, a lot of infrastructure, like on the back end, the users don't have like access to directly know what's happening. And that's not the point. That I use, for example, Gelato, I use Pith, I use more oracles, I use dev tooling, I use a lot of things to make it work. Like, especially in Beefy, we focus on making the DeFi experience easier for the user, but it's not easy for us. Doing what's easy for the user. That is the whole mission.
Beefy's whole mission is to like take the massive complexity and sit on top, be a layer that kind of unifies it. So that makes sense. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that it's a barrier for end users that there's such like a diverse selection of things that you can interact with, and especially there are barriers, that we focus on a lot going cross-chain, but I think they're starting to be solved, and it's kind of like it's a necessary evil in some ways. When you have innovation, it just gets there's a lot of entropy, right? Like a more and more chaotic. All these possibilities, and then I think kind of the leading, whether it be the leading wallet applications or the leading DeFi aggregators or whatever, like they start to attract, and like because of the way things socialize in DeFi, then you I think have clear leaders.
Yeah, so we're just early.
Yeah, we're just. I mean, we have some nice user interfaces, but it's always good to have somebody who's creating just a bit better one, so you never fall asleep. And for this, that means that you have a bunch of user interfaces, and it's difficult. So you get people that are trying to unify this, and then you get an even better one. But we're still that early that you need to take this into the account.
I have another good example.
Lay it on
For
me.
example, I mentioned the SAP feature before. That enables the user in Beefy to basically deposit into any liquidity pool with any token you have in your wallet. But we have a very good team of people working exactly that part in our app. That basically, when a user say, "I want to build a BTC ETH LP, but I only have USDC." For example, in the backend, like the whole team built, like we search different aggregators that we have in that exact tool, and like we pick the best price across the 5 different aggregators. We make sure the slippage is the correct one. We make sure that you won't obviously swap into an empty pool like with low liquidity, and you will get hit by all those kind of things, and the users don't see that. Like that's a lot of complexity that the users only see like, oh, this is nice, I can deposit USDC and I'll get a BTC ETH LP. So it's that kind of things that I think it helps build like with each other.
Awesome. Couple minutes left, maybe to round out here. Would love to hear from each of you just about, let's say we look out 3 years, which is an absolute eternity in this racket, and just say, what is like a scaled ecosystem of each of your projects look like? Like, what are the key things that you're looking for, like that are guiding you as North Stars that you want to see in 3 years' time?
3 years is forever.
Long time.
I'm thinking about like November.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Pith-wise, as I mentioned earlier, like we now think universal price layer. And whether it's for DeFi, crypto tokens, TradFi assets, whether US stocks to Chinese stocks to Korean stocks, like it just feels like all finance will happen on a blockchain, whether it's a decentralized or centralized, permissioned, permissionless. I don't know. We'll see. I think, Pith-wise, I think the network will succeed if we kind of are able to become that Bloomberg kind of source of truth for pricing a financial asset. So we're just thinking, how can we keep like adding new assets to our network, supporting more chains, and even like I wouldn't be shocked that you get more and more like completely off-chain integration or usage from like I don't know, Amazon that just picks into like the flow of data Pith has. So overall, it's just better your product. And I mean, Pith, maybe we're lucky in that where it's pretty clear that the more assets you support, the more chains or place you can consume, you'll be successful, or at least you'll increase your reach.
Well, yeah, like it was said here, so 3 years is an eternity here. But I think, at least from Flare perspective, so what the next few months, a year and a half will be, is how to be able to integrate these data feeds, not just data feeds about external world, but pretty much off-chain computation that you can offload to a secure enclave that gives you a correct result, that gives you a result of an AI model that you run there that nobody can hamper with, and you can do a lot more things that currently industry things that are not even possible off-chain on it. I think this is a core proposition, and just to be a bit provocative, I think a bit more hacks will happen until then, because people will be careless and not take security strictly enough, because people will just want to explore the unexplored. Okay, let's just fake it for a while. Let's just forget about how to prove that somebody was malicious. Let's just trust the minority that's going to be always good, and then nobody's watching. So I think we'll have to be careful in this case, and in the next 3 years we're going to see a bunch of last Fridays.
I think about this in terms of the numbers that we use now, but the metrics we use now might not matter 3 years from now. So if I think about the things I'm watching now, I would say, we're probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 billion in TVL at that point, 3 years from now. But more likely we will have like crossed TVL off of our list and started to focus on something like, financing $500 billion in trade finance. I mean, there's like $9 trillion in trade finance going on right now. It's like massive. They're massive, massive numbers. And so I see us focusing on some of these use cases where Stellar can have a unique benefit because of our connections to TradFi, because of the anchors around the world and all the projects, the MoneyGram integration, all these things. So I see us focusing on new numbers, but I see them being very large and very connected to real world use cases in finance.
For Beefy, I think we basically will need to keep developing for the regular user be able to participate in the new opportunities that are going to arise, which is inevitable. Because at the end, like, all right, B3 liquidity, you have to set ranges, you have to do 60-40 of each token, blah, blah, blah. All right, we built the CLM, that problem solved. Like, now you can deposit and just forget about it. But guess what? B4 liquidity just launched. So now we have a B4 version of something that we just built a B3 version on. So it's basically keep adapting. So same as lending protocols. At the beginning, we only had farms. Then lending protocols came on board, and we need to do a strategy for lending protocols because people want to deposit and just take the reward and loop it in the supply side. So now we have to build that, and on. It's never stop.
I love it. Well, everybody in the audience, timestamp it. Come back next year and see how we're doing on these goals. But thanks everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists, and let's have a great rest of the day. I hear drinks are coming out soon.